He was a great genius, yes. We revere him as a god of physics and mathematics, yes. He invented calculus, for goodness sakes, yes. But he was also obsessively secretive and determined to hide his discoveries, especially this one, so no one else would beat him to the punch by taking his unfinished theories and figuring out the ultimate punchline. So much so that he refused to publish it for another 42 years, determined to solve its deepest mystery himself. Let me explain what this is. It's an infinite series of what's called reciprocal factorials. Those are on the bottom with exclamation points. They mean 1 times 2, 1 times 2 times 3, 1 times 2 times 3 times 4, and so on to infinity. So this one is, of course, just 1. The definition of a factorial is it's the product of an integer and all the integers below it. So obviously they stop at 1 factorial, and this whole series converges to 1.718 at infinity. Now, there's no doubt that Newton recognized E equals 2.718 as an extremely important constant. It's the natural base of logarithms, clearly as important as pi itself. He knew it had 2 parts, this grouping that converges perfectly to 1.718, and this unity that stands alone at the beginning, just as Bernoulli would later discover in the banking formula of principal plus compound interest. In his writings, we see very clearly that he suspected this connection between feet and cubit was the ratio 1 to 1.718, but he couldn't prove it empirically. He spent his life looking for what he believed was a sacred connection between feet and the royal cubit. He was convinced it was to be found in the Great Pyramid, but the measurements available at the time were simply not accurate enough. So, he did something very dubious with this equation. He changed this first 1 to 1 over 0 factorial. It made the overall formula look far more elegant and balanced, but it simply doesn't make any sense. 0 times what? You can't include integers 0, or you'd have to multiply them all by integer 0, which would turn them all into 0. Not to mention that dividing by 0 is completely forbidden in math. So what did he do to get away with this very suspect sleight of hand? He simply defined 0 factorial as equal to 1. And if you study this, you find it's a big problem. It's always been asked by students of calculus today, why does 0 factorial equal 1? It doesn't make any sense. And the answer is because Newton said so. He literally changed this perfectly fine formula that accurately describes E as a ratio of 1 to 1.718 so that we only see the single total 2.718. In so doing, he completely buried its dual nature, and as a consequence, science today still does not suspect the full importance of the E-1 part of this ratio.